Hi guys, welcome back. Today we are doing a book review for Martin the Warrior by Brian Jacques. Martin the Warrior is a book in the Redwall series, and it is about a character named Martin and his best friends Rose and Grum and Feldo and Brome. The Redwall series is a high fantasy series about animals, and the animals have a whole society and everything, and it's one of my favorite fantasy worlds just because it's so beautiful and peaceful in many ways, and just kind of reminds me of Hobbiton and the Shire, where it's just happy, and it's a very unique world.
We're going to try something a little different for our book review today. If you've watched our video, What Makes a Book Enjoyable to Us, we talk about 5 specific elements of story that really make a book enjoyable to us.
We're going to try and take the story and fit it into each of the categories and rate it based on that.
In Tier 1, our first element we'll be talking about is characters. There were 5 main characters in the story. Martin, who's the main character of the story, his friends Rose, Grum, Brome, and Feldo.
Martin is a mouse, and when we first meet him in the story, he is imprisoned in a fortress called Marshank by Badrang, who is the tyrant of the world, and these are a lot of names.
Yeah.
So Martin is a strong-willed slave, essentially, and he won't allow Badrang to get away with anything and will stand up to him, as does Feldo. And so these two characters are kind of the big, strong warriors throughout the story.
Rose and Brome are brother and sister. Brome is imprisoned in Marshank with Martin and Feldo. Rose is working with Grum to try and help them escape.
When Grum and Rose first meet Martin, he is strung up for the elements to decide whether he lives or dies. And so it's kind of this, Martin has to live, but nobody inside Marshank thinks he will, but Rose and Grum are on the outside of the fortress trying to help him survive through the night and the next morning. So one of the things about Martin is, like I said, he's a very strong character, a very strong-willed character, but he's this way because of his years of enslavement, and he's sick and tired of it, and he doesn't want it to happen to anyone else in the world, and he's just ready to be done. So he's become this strong warrior through manual labor and practice, and so now his story is basically do what he can to help the other slaves in Marshank.
Rose is a wise and compassionate character. She is also able to help Martin when his warrior and almost inhumane instincts start to play out. She kind of helps him control that and manage his anger. She's a really kind character, and I think she draws the group together a whole bunch.
She's kind of the moral center and the heart of the group.
One thing I noticed about Rose is she always references inside jokes that they've come upon, that's been created as they go through their journey. I think that's really fun, and it shows just how lighthearted Rose is.
So Grum is a mole, and in the Redwall world, the moles have what is called mole speech, and it is just a dialect where the words are kind of garbled together, and it's kind of hard to make sense of at times. So there's that aspect, but he's also a comedic character as it is. His innate sense of humor mixed with his inability to articulate clearly, as in unclearly to us, it's perfectly understandable to other moles. That causes for a very natural humor, so that just adds a whole nother layer of lightheartedness to the group, which is really fun. He's also a brilliant cook. Basically, he just likes food and he wants to make food for everybody all the time, especially soup.
Brome wants to be strong, but quickly learns that he is not a warrior, and that his strength lies in his ability to befriend and be friends with others.
Feldo is the last main character that we're going to talk about, and he is like Martin, he's a warrior, and he has, again, like Martin, trained from a young age and has grown up with manual labor, and so he's a very strong, very tough warrior who, again, also hates Badrang and Marshank as much as Martin, and just wants to see the land free of the tyranny of the villain.
Feldo is a squirrel.
Yes, and he's fun. I like the squirrels.
One thing I really liked about Martin is although he was a strong warrior, he wasn't all-powerful. He failed, and he had his own struggles along with being strong.
Yeah. That's part of what makes Brian Jacques' characters, even though they're all animals, that's part of what makes them so great, is they all have flaws and they all are not perfect and unbeatable. They all have a reason why they fight and why they lose.
I don't emotionally connect with animal characters for the most part. Very few books do I emotionally connect with animal characters. So while I love this story and I think it was a great story, it's lower in my estimation than it would be in Tony's because I just don't have the affinity for animals.
So the next story element is plot/story, and as we've already kind of mentioned, this is the story about Martin and his friends trying to free the land of the tyranny of Marshank and Battering. So Martin's storyline is basically, in many ways, him going through a series of mini adventures that all contribute to this greater storyline of him freeing the land of tyranny. I actually really like the way it was told because, in a way, it's almost, in my mind, similar to like Hercules or Sinbad stories where it's a series of, or it's a specific obstacle that he has to overcome before he can move on to the next part of the story, but it all combines into this one greater overarching storyline.
The plot was very fluid, it was consistent, it continued throughout the story, and it all tied together in the end.
Brian Jacques has always done a good job at that in my mind, where he has a very clear idea of where the story's heading from the very beginning, and he knows how to get there. One of the biggest themes in this book is loyalty and protecting those around you that are weaker and can't protect themselves.
Another great theme is perseverance. There are a couple more standard themes: never give up, do right, that's a big one.
But it's not as simple as do right. It's oppose tyranny because tyranny will oppose you.
It goes back to protecting those that don't have a voice or the strength to defend themselves.
So on that lower tier, if you know what we're talking about, there's the world/setting. This world, as I've mentioned in this video already, is a very beautiful, very fun world, and I actually really enjoy visiting it. Reading Martin the Warrior again, it was just so nice to get back into this world where I feel like I've grown up in many ways because I've read it for so many years now.
One of my favorite things about this book is it's dealing with the hard topic of slavery and of tyranny, and there's a battle, there's serious battle wounds, injuries, but because it's animals and because it's written for children, it's written in a way that's lighthearted enough that it doesn't brush over these serious issues, but it's not too scary or too dark, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've never actually thought of that, but it's written for a younger audience, and because of that, you can't present things like blood and gore and the horrors of war as easily or as naturally as you could in a book about humans.
Yeah, the book overall is light. I think of it as a light book, even though it dealt with some very dark issues.
And that's one of the best things about Brian Jacques, in my opinion, now that you've said that and I've actually thought about it. So one of the greatest things about Brian Jacques' books are all the side characters that you meet throughout the series, because there are a lot of them. But this one in particular had some just great characters who were fun, and they're always unique. That's another thing that I can praise Brian Jacques for, is the uniqueness of each of his characters.
One more thing to note, more on the character side, that I really loved is all of the characters supported each other. They were encouraging and they believed in each other, and that's always encouraging to see among friends, even newly made friends.
Yeah, friendship. I guess friendship is another theme.
Yeah.
And that is one of the best themes that you can have, and best relationships that you can have in a story is that of friends and
true friends.
Really strong friendships.
Yeah.
It's something that I never get tired of. So the magic system in the Redwall series, I'm just going to briefly touch on this because it's so subtle and so immersive in many ways. It's just an intrinsic part of the world. But it's a very interesting magic system, and it's not shown a lot in Martin the Warrior itself, just because for the rest of the series, Martin is kind of involved in the magic system. But it's also never fully explained, so I kind of have to just go off of what I know from reading most of the books in the series and having read him multiple times. So this magic system has to do with when you are in need, or when the character is in need rather, they're seeking guidance, a spirit from the past almost will come and visit them and give them advice based on their experiences. And this can range from anything from like Martin coming and visiting, which is the most common, to the Badger Lords from other books in the series. And it's basically just they come and help guide you when you need it the most, but they won't solve the problem for you.
Martin the Warrior is the only book I've read in the Redwall series, and just from that book, I wouldn't even say there is a magic system.
It's very much not a huge part of the series, but it is an intrinsic part of the world. If we were to rate this book, I would probably give it a 4.25 out of 5 stars or something like that. It's a solid book in my mind, and it's almost up there with Lord of the Rings, but it's not quite, just because it's not, I mean, it's not Lord of the Rings.
It's middle grade too.
It's middle grade, which that doesn't necessarily mean it's worse or anything. I don't know, I'd probably give it 4 or 4.25 out of 5 stars.
I would give it a solid 4. I think it was well done, but the whole fact that I couldn't relate to the characters and really feel emotionally connected to the characters just brought it so low. It ruined my enjoyment of it because I couldn't connect with the characters.
Yeah, that's alright. It's just, that's fine. It's a fine opinion to have. If you enjoyed the video, please comment down below if you want us to continue reviewing this series. I really love the Redwall series, and I'm going to try and get Kate to love it and want to read it as much as I do. I'm hoping the Redwall series will be a staple on our channel, where we will have reviewed every single book in the series, and where we will have lore deep dives and character deep dives and all these different things that will be fun and a deeper look into the series as a whole, seeing as it's a lesser known series, but it's truly a great series. I think it deserves more recognition and more praise than it gets.
Like you said, please like the video and subscribe to our channel.
Thanks for watching. Stay warm.